I got a fever, and the only prescription is more cruising. At least that's true for a man that got arrested for trying to take a cruise. And we had a near collision between two cruise ships. And it's scary, and it's under investigation. That, plus a whole lot more on today's episode. Let's go. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to La Lido Loco. Welcome to the Cruise Show. I am your host, Tony, here to talk you through everything going on in cruising. Everything going on in cruising is for your face. It's for your face on a Wednesday, the 18th of June, 2025. And well, I'm somewhat back to normal. Yesterday, I showed you this clip of the ceiling of the studio caving in. Turns out it was an air conditioning thing. Water condensation. Something was supposed to catch water that stopped catching water, and it covered the ceiling and it crashed down. The only real loss is that couch that was behind me. It's so waterlogged we had to toss it, but floor is dry, and we're getting scheduled to get the roof repaired. So all's well that ends well. Of course, saying that, I think there was also another fatality. This is the interface I use for the microphone to record the show. And I guess in the fervor yesterday of moving stuff around, I touched a button and I recorded today's episode completely, full 20 minutes worth of uncut raw footage. And the audio sounded like this.
I got a fever. And the only prescription is more cruising. Is cruising cowbell in the classic SNL sketch? We got a man out there that seemingly will do anything to get on an Alaskan cruise.
And while I feel like that's pretty entertaining, I also feel like that's pretty unusable. So instead of forcing, 20 minutes of that kind of audio on you, I'm recording the show again. So exciting. Hopefully, I don't script any of this, so hopefully it'll be the same enthusiasm as the first time I went through it. Let's start off with these three TikToks I want to show you. These are people who captured the bad weather in Juneau, Alaska on June the 16th, just a couple days ago. This first shot's terrifying. It's from the tram system up there in Juneau where they take you up the mountain. I would not like to be in a tram swaying back and forth, but it's showing that there's bad weather on that day in Juneau. And then the second clip is from ABC, I believe, and it's showing the lines snapping on the Celebrity Edge. And that caused a problem, and the problem that it caused is the edge floated out into the middle of the harbor, almost hitting another cruise ship. That's what we're seeing in the third clip. The near collision was significant enough that there was a Coast Guard investigation opened, an ongoing investigation. It's still going on right now. Bad weather snaps the lines on the Celebrity Edge, pushes it out into the middle of the harbor, almost pushes it into the Carnival Luminosa. They had to drop anchor and drag to slow the edge down so it would not, continue to impede the trajectory of the Luminosa. The Luminosa maneuvers and eventually makes its way out of the port of Juneau. Man, scary stuff, and a reminder of how significant the role of weather is when it comes to your cruise vacation. The cool thing is nobody was hurt. And it's some crazy looking footage, I'll tell you that. Do want to say real quick right here, because of yesterday's craziness, everything that I needed to do yesterday, I'm now doing today. And that includes the live shows. We do want to go live and make a connection, but we're going to do it earlier tonight. So that's why I'm making the big announcement. If you're part of our Patreon community, you get that exclusive live show. That's going to happen at 7 p.m. Eastern tonight. I've already set up the link in Patreon. Go over there, get ready for that. And then for everybody else, we got the big public live show tonight at 8 p.m. We'll be here talking about cruising. I think it's primarily going to be answering some questions and about anything, really. So come and have us answer your cruise questions or life questions. We're happy to do it. And then this is probably the last day I'll be in the studio for a while. So be on the lookout for outside the studio presentations of the show. Now, our next story, really a cautionary tale. This is Janine Foster. And Janine Foster did a thing that I advise against quite a bit. She decided to travel to her cruise on the day of her cruise. And the travel that she was taking was an aeroplane. I'm sure you can guess part of the ending of this story. She was set to cruise on a cruise out of Miami. She arrives at her local airport on the day of the cruise to get on her 6:45 a.m. flight. When she arrives at the airport, there's a sign that says this flight has been postponed to 7:45. And then just 8 minutes after that, or 8 minutes until 8, she gets notified that the flight has been canceled. And she scrambles around the airport. She looks for a bunch of different ways to get to Miami, and it's just not possible. She misses her cruise. And well, that's part of the cautionary tale. If you're going to go on a cruise vacation, go in the day before. Unless you just live right next to the cruise ship, within an hour maybe, just go in the night before. It's so much better. Fly in, get yourself a hotel, sleep well, get yourself a nice breakfast, go on the cruise ship. I know for some folks, it's like, well, that seems like a huge waste of money. Sometimes those hotels are very expensive the night before. It's true. It's true. All of those things are true, but I don't want to miss my cruise. The second part of the cautionary tale is make sure that you have travel insurance, not just for health reasons, not just for bad weather and mechanical failure, but also in case you miss your flight. Look, maybe that's the proper hedge of the bet of going to the cruise the day of your cruise. At least you can recoup your money. Where are you at out there? I probably should run a poll, but you could leave a comment. Do you go to the cruise port the day of your cruise, or do you go the day before or the day before that? Leave a comment below. And speaking of bets, do you remember this guy? I told you about the young man who made a $13 bet on a 5-way championship parlay. I told you that if everything came true on his bet, his $13 would be $270,000. And at the time I was reporting, 3 things had come true, and the company that he had bet with was offering him $107,000 to walk away. All he had to do was push the green button for $107,000, but he said, no way. I'm taking this all the way to the end. And well, last night it ended. The Florida Panthers won the Stanley Cup for the second year in a row, keeping the main trophy for hockey here in Florida. I'm sorry, Canada. That's pretty cool. And with their victory last night, the guy lost his $13. His bet is no more. So he's out $13. Is he only out the $13, or is he out the highest money that was offered to him? In my opinion, he's out the highest money offered to him. But I know some hardcore gamblers out there will be like, hey, he just lost the $13. Crazy. I would have pulled the trigger. Now, our next story, a pretty cool story where the cruise ship is the hero. If you've been tracking along with the news beyond the cruise news, which I don't know anybody would pay attention to anything other than cruise news, there's some challenges going on in the world right now. And of course, we have this huge conflict between Israel and Iran. And this is one of those things that looks like it's going to probably pull all of us into it. Interesting times. Well, some folks already got pulled into it. There is an organization called Birthright Israel, which takes young people to Israel for educational tour groups. And currently, there's about 1,500 participants on a Birthright Israel tour, and many of them are Americans. And the conflict broke out, and there was really no clear way about how they were going to get home. And so a secretive operation got put into effect where a cruise ship actually went and pulled these 1,500 people out of Israel and took them to the island of Cyprus. The cruise ship is a cruise ship owned by Manila Maritime called the Crown Isis. Here's a picture of the folks on this cruise ship. It looks like they're having a fairly good time. But imagine this cruise ship is being escorted by the Israeli Navy all the way from the coast of Israel to Cyprus. And now, once these folks are in Cyprus, the ones that live in the United States are going to be flown to Florida on a privately chartered plane that was arranged by the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis. It's a heavy thing going on there. Again, I'll throw the picture up because it looks like these young folks are having a great time. And I think the thing that I took away from this is it really does speak to the duality of our existence. We constantly deal with troubles and challenges and tragedy and trouble, but at the same time, we can also be joyful and rejoice and enjoy the moment. And I think that's what you see happening here. And I think it is a good lesson for really life, because a lot of times there's a lot of fear mongering out there that's kind of set at us to make us live in the woe of life without, reminding us to also revel in the joy of life. And the times are tough, times are bad, but times are also good and great. And it's important to kind of be mindful of both. And look, I'll say it again. I got a fever, and the only prescription is more cruising. And that, like I said, it's certainly true for me, but it's also true for a guy, Enrico Ronquillo. He's a citizen of the Philippines who has been legally living in the U.S., and he has been indicted for stealing the identity of an actual U.S. citizen for the purposes of going on an Alaskan cruise. That's right. Somebody told this dude that there were orcas in the water of the Inside Passage, and he's like, I gotta go, but for some reason I can't go with my own identity, so what should I do? I know. I will steal somebody's identity, allegedly. So Enrique Ronquillo, he went to Alaska carrying a fraudulent California driver's license, carrying a fraudulent California birth certificate, and he even took the step of completing an IRS form W-9 to also establish identity. He was caught and arrested, and they're not playing around with this in Alaska. Alaskan prosecutors have charged him with several charges, and if he is convicted, he faces a minimum of 2 years in jail. And if he gets hit hard with all of the penalties, he may have to pay $250,000 in fines. I love cruising, but I don't think I would steal an identity or have to pay $250,000 to do it.
There you go. That's everything that's going on in cruising. That is your cruise show for today. Thanks, everybody, for watching and listening. Look, there's only one thing left to do, and we're going to do it. This is Tony for La Lido Loca. I'll see you on the Lido, and now it is time to dance. Get up. Get up.